Hello, in this video I'd like to show you the first time power up of a Weidmuller IOT-GW30 Ethernet Gateway. This device makes use of mobile data via a SIM card which you have to fit into the unit. But before you can make use of the mobile data, you initially have to connect to it via the local area network ports, the RJ45 ports on the front of the unit. So in my setup, I'm making use of the top port, which is default IP address 192.168.0.101. So the first step is to make sure my PC is on the same network. So go into the network settings, network status, pick my Ethernet connection, pick change adapter options, go into the Ethernet connection and go to properties and go into TCP IPv4 and make sure you're using an IP address that's on the same network range as the gateway. So the gateway is 192.168.0.101 and I put my PC on 192.168.0.0.100 with the same subnet mask. Okay, so we accept those changes, close that. We can then open up a DOS window by typing cmd, and then we can do ipconfig to confirm the IP address of my PC, and there it is, that's my PC's IP, and then I can ping the gateway 192.168.0.101. Okay, and we have 4 successful ping tests, so we are talking to the gateway. Okay, so now you move to your browser, make sure you're using a compatible browser. The recommended browsers, Google Chrome. Google Chrome should be version 67 or higher. You can also use Mozilla Firefox 61 or higher and Microsoft Edge 85 or higher. It would be a good idea to refer to the datasheet supplied with the unit in case things change. Okay, so I can now go into the address banner in the top of my browser, type in the IP address of the Ethernet gateway itself, and there we go, 192.168.0.101. And notice it failed because it defaulted, in my case, to HTTPS. It's not. HTTPS means a secure network. It isn't. So you get rid of the S. HTTP ://192.168.0.101. Okay, and it looks like we are connecting to the web server of the controller. First time you power the unit, you will get an end user license agreement which you should read through. It's quite long, but it's a recommendation that you read through it. And if you're happy to proceed, then click the box and accept license agreement. Okay, and then to log into the gateway, you use the fairly generic login username and password as we use with many products, which is admin, all in lowercase, and detmold, which is capital D, then a lowercase ETMOLD, which is basically Weidmuller's hometown, and then you can go sign in. And there we are. It would be a good idea to actually, if you're using Google Chrome or whatever browser you're using, to actually bookmark the tab. So I'll add a bookmark and I'll add it to my bookmark bar for reference later. And you'll notice that basically this gateway doesn't have a PLC programming feature like our U-Control Web. It just has Node-RED and it has the ability for remote access via U-Link. Okay, so before we look at any of that, it's a good idea to look at settings, and you might want to look at changing your network address. So if you click in here, you can go into here and you can change that IP address to something more practical for your particular application setup. And as you'll notice, you've got Ethernet port 1 and Ethernet port 2, which at the minute is disconnected, which is correct. So I'm connected to Ethernet port 1. You would probably be a good idea to put a DNS server in here. I would normally use 8.8.8.8 and the backup DNS 8.8.4.4, which is basically Google's DNS servers. This allows you to access websites by name rather than by the IP address. So we've now set addresses for the DNS server. We can change the IP address to suit our setup, our local area network. So once we're happy with that, we can apply the changes. Okay. In the settings, there are some other things to look at. For a start, let's look at time settings. So the good thing is, or the idea of the product is that it's got a permanent internet connection, either via the cellular network or a local area network connection. As you can see here, it's picking up the current time and date from an NTP server. So I haven't configured anything. This is out of the box. It's automatically synchronizing the clock, correct time and date, and that's the NTP server it's using. So you're not relying on a battery, you're relying on an NTP server, so that clock should always be accurate. So close that. Settings, cellular settings. So these are the settings relating to your SIM card and your provider, your network provider. So as you can see here, I haven't done anything yet. Again, I've just opened it up and it says I'm online, gives me my signal strength, and it tells me what network I'm on. So all I've done is physically, before I powered up the unit, was to remove the little screw cover and fitted a SIM card. The data sheet could be a bit clearer maybe, but it's what we call a micro SIM card. So just to show you what that looks like. These are different size SIM cards. So hopefully when you order your SIM card, you'll get the standard size SIM. And generally speaking these days, the SIM has little perforations in it where you can click out to drop down to a smaller size. So the size you require is a micro SIM. It's just a standard SIM. In my particular case, we go back to the controller. It says I'm on O2. It's actually a GIF-GAF SIM card, but GIF-GAF use O2 as a provider. Signal strength is not brilliant, but that's because I'm in the office and the board is against the wall, so the antenna of the signal is blocked. It may be the case that if you've got the gateway fitted in an enclosure, you may have to look at fitting an extension cable and fitting the antenna outside of the enclosure due to the fact that the enclosure will block the signal. You can do a firmware upgrade if you need to. It's a good idea to look at the firmware version. So if you go to About, we're on version 1.91. You can always go on the internet and search for the part number of the gateway. So if I do that just to show you, literally just go on here and type in the part number, type in IOT-GW30, and I can go to here and it's catalog.weidmuller. So that's going directly to our site. Click on there. This particular version is the non-cellular data version. If I go to related products, then here is the 4G EU. So it's 4G signal and it's EU for Europe. Click on that. I can now see the little antenna connections. Okay, and if I need to look for firmware, go to downloads. You can find product change notifications, CAD files, firmware, and all the documentation. So that's a very useful place to download all the literature related to the product. If you do have a problem with the gateway, maybe it crashes or some other problem, then you can download a service file. So you click here, download a service file, saves a .ucs file on your PC. You then send that to Weidmuller technical support, and we can liaise with support in Germany, and they can help identify the issue you might be having. So other settings you might want to look at are firmware update. So if you want to update the firmware, that's where you go once you've downloaded it onto your PC. Factory reset's fairly straightforward, reverts you back to factory settings. And if for some reason you want to, you can restart the system. So just basically do a warm restart. You probably should change the password, because the default password, admin det mode, is a well-known password and it's not particularly secure, so you want to change that. And then you've got your U-Link set up as well. So you click in there and that'll go to U-Link. So to set up U-Link, it depends really whether you've got a U-Link account or not. If you haven't ever used U-Link before, then you need to go into learn more, and that will give you some information. If you're still struggling, then obviously contact Weidmuller technical support. In my particular case, I've already got a U-Link account, so I go to Open U-Link web portal, and that basically just opens up a browser tab and allows me to log in, and it remembers all my credentials. So I go log in, go to administration because I want to add something new, go to device management, and you'll see some of my existing setups on U-Link. So I want to add a new device, so I go to here, add device, and I look for the device. So here we have an IoT gateway, which is there by default. I drag that over here and drop it in the top of the tree structure. Okay, and notice you get a unique activation code for the gateway device. So you can highlight that, Control C to copy it, and then close the window. Okay, and then you can go back to the controller itself, into Open U-Link settings, and then paste the activation code. So Control V, put that in there, apply, wait a few minutes, and then you should get confirmation that the activation code has been activated and is ready to go. Okay, so I've hit the apply button and I've waited a few minutes and nothing appears to have happened. So the next step I would suggest is to do a refresh. And there we go. So if you don't see anything happen for a few minutes, then perform a refresh, and there you go. It says device registered. And if for some reason you want to unregister it, that's where you do it. So you've registered and it's activated, but you've got to enable it. So click in here to enable it. So the VPN connection, you can make some setting changes here. VPN connection is always allowed, or you can define the digital inputs. You have two digital inputs on unit, 24 volt DC, so you can use either of those to prevent the VPN connection. Shut it down for your own security on site if you believe you need that. So the minute the worldwide heartbeat, that is disconnected, so that needs to be connected before we can actually make use of U-Link. Okay, so I've just done another refresh again, and now the worldwide heartbeat is connected. So basically that's the signal that goes over the internet to the U-Link server and shows we've got a connection. So that's looking good. So now we can open up the U-Link VPN client on our PC. So you can go to your little question mark here. This is on the assumption you've used U-Link before. So type in VPN, quick shortcut, and there it is, U-Link VPN client. So click on that. So this is a separate little program that must be installed on the PC, because U-Link is what we call a meeting place. So you have your gateway, which is talking to the U-Link server, and you have your PC, which has the U-Link connection on it, which is also connecting to the server. So it's a meeting point. I now have to connect my PC to the U-Link server. So again, all my credentials are in here. This is my personal activation. The worldwide heartbeat is connected. VPN status is disconnected. So we hit connect, and look, notice what happens here. So just give it a minute or two, and there you go, it's connecting. Okay, so we got VPN working both ways, worldwide heartbeats there, and everything's connected, so that's all good. Okay, now we can go back to the U-Link portal. We can either click in the tab up here or just click here. We give you a link to it, so it just takes you to the same place. I'm in the administration window. When I actually want to physically connect to the device, I have to go to the service area. Do that again, open service desk. So you see a replication of my devices here, and we also see the IoT Gateway, which has recently been added. So I click on there, and then it says the worldwide heartbeat's active, and then I say connect the VPN router to U-Link, or connect the gateway to U-Link, and then wait, and that should change to connected. Notice this is the activation code. Okay, that's connected, and then we have to connect the VPN PC to U-Link to the router. So it's a 2 stages, and we're connected. So now I am physically connected to the router or gateway. I have the U-Link connected. There are some other important areas we need to look at. What you need to bear in mind at the moment is I am still connected to the gateway via a copper cable. When we come to connect to it remotely, this is the IP address we'll be using, 10.51.73.64 in my case. So that's the IP address that's coming from Cellular network, and it's a hyperlink here, so I click on that. It should open up the web page, which I've already got open. Let me just flick to it. Okay, so there's the web page. Some other settings you need to look at are more cellular settings. Click in here, and you should put in some additional information about your SIM card service provider. So what I've done is I'm using giffgaff, so I just go on the internet and search for giffgaff APN settings, click and look at that, and there they are, giffgaff.com, username GG, password P. So I have gone into my U-Link setup, and I've added that and applied them. Okay, so as I say, that should be all set up now. So what we can then do is disconnect the U-Link service. So we disconnect the bottom one first, then we disconnect the top one. Then what we can do is remove the copper cable, so we are no longer physically connected to the gateway. So we're hoping now to connect over cellular. Just waiting for them both to disconnect. Okay, so they're both disconnected. So I pull the Ethernet cable out, and then I go through the process again of connecting in the 2 steps. Okay, connect the bottom one. Okay, so this is all good because I physically pulled the copper cable out. I've now proved the point that I'm connecting purely over the cellular network. And then, as I said earlier, you can click in here, that hyperlink, and that is opening up the web browser, web server of the gateway over the cellular network. Okay, so that's this part done. The next part will be to show you some features of Node-RED. So if I click into Node-RED, another way of proving I've got a public connection to the public internet would be to actually try and open the Node-RED library or repository. So I go to here, the burger at the top right, go to Manage Palette, and here this lists all the nodes that come pre-installed from Weidmuller. A lot of them are generic Node-RED, some of them are unique to Weidmuller. So if I go to install, if I type in clock, and I'm seeing all this information. So to me, that's clear information that I've actually physically connected to the Node-RED site, and I can read the library. And then if I want to install one of these, I click on install. Okay, so let's close that. So I'm happy now that I've got an Ethernet connection, all's working.